Program complete. Enter when ready.
All right. Star Trek. Do it. Do it.
I've been waiting all day for Star Trek.
I can't wait to talk about the integral differences between Ortega and the other communicator guy that's almost identical.
Yeah.
It's funny though, because actually like watching this, I was like, hey, you know what? It's all right, you know.
There's a lot to unpack.
You're like, man, so they were really trying to make Ortega as annoying as this guy, which is they did a great job.
Yeah.
They did a great job.
Great job.
Risk is our business.
Out there. That way.
What happened?
Starfleet was founded to seek out new life. Well, there it sits.
Sounds like fun.
Rock and roll!
6,
We're not afraid of diversity. We don't persecute it, we embrace it.
At least I won't die alone.
Join our Federation of Planets and reach for the stars.
Those were the days.
Get right into it.
Trekking across the universe.
Welcome back to another Trek review, where we cover Star Trek weekly. This week, we are covering the original series episode, Balance of Terror, which is episode 14 in release date order. But for us, it's only episode 7. It was originally aired on December 15th, 1966. It was written by Paul Schneider and directed by Vincent McAvee. The synopsis for the episode is: the Enterprise battles a Romulan ship suspected of destroying outposts near the neutral zone. So before we get into the recap and really talk about this, because there's another episode on the channel that plays really close to this episode, let's ask Caleb what he thought of the episode.
Yeah. I thought it was good. I did like the I enjoyed watching that episode of Strange New Worlds first.
Yeah.
And then now I can like compare like everything that they like drew from this.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like really good. Like it kept my attention like the whole episode. I was really like, it was really cool too to see like from the early standpoint, like Romulans are just like nobody like knows about them, like in that timeline. Like you're not supposed to know about the Romulans.
Right.
And I don't know. Yeah, I really enjoyed seeing like some of the things that they played off of like beat for beat in Strange New Worlds from this.
Yes.
A lot of the stuff is, you know, pretty close, which is like really, really cool. Especially when they see the Romulan for the first time and
Yeah.
Spock does his eyebrow thing. Yeah, I was like, man, this is great.
Yeah.
Really cool. It's really cool. But you see why it had to be Kirk.
Had to be Kirk.
Oh. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed it.
Good.
It's still funny to me that like before we did this, when I was thinking about the original series, I was like, oh, it's so like cheesy. You know, you picture the Gorn fight, right? And it's
Yeah.
And you're just like, I don't know. But like really, like watching this, I really have not felt that like,
Sure,
oh man,
yeah.
this is so outdated and so like cheesy.
Right.
I haven't felt that at all. I've been really like captivated by it, honestly.
Yeah, the nice thing about it is like the acting is fantastic because they're all
Yeah.
great older actors.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, like typically, again, showing you the more refined episodes
Mhm.
than the ones that are
Oh
a little
yeah, I'm
more,
sure there's like weird
yeah,
one-off, like
which
really.
we're skipping.
Oh
But you know, so you have this is a more well-written episode. But the thing that really only probably is the hardest thing to get past, even going all the way back to Enterprise, is like just the sets. The sets are just very,
yeah,
very, very retro 60s, 50s kind of like
yeah.
looks.
They're very bland.
Right, right. And it's all just like, well, Christmas lights and things blinking and making weird noises is like that's the future, type of thing.
Yeah, though, but the funny thing too is like I honestly really love it.
Oh, I love it too. No, 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 I love
Like
it.
I love that like aesthetic.
Yes, absolutely. No, I love it too. But like that's the only thing that really kind of takes you out is because Enterprise had the nice like touch screens and like the nice little things. And then
Yeah,
you go to Strange New Worlds, which is coming out, which is a brand new show. So
yeah,
everything is like hyper streamlined and modern looking, despite it still being like supposedly on the same, track
yeah,
as this, like look of it, but it's so shiny and glossy and nice looking. And then you go to this and it's just all matte paint and stuff. So that's like honestly the only thing if I was like you, I would just be like, I like everything. It's just very
yeah,
obvious that it's filmed in a different decade.
yeah. No, it's true. It's true. It's funny though, yeah, because I mean you can tell sometimes, right, where it's like they push a button,
Yeah.
and all that button does is turn on like all the underlying like lights to the panel, so like
Right.
all the
Right.
buttons come on.
Right.
But
Right.
I think
Right.
I still think it's cool. I
Yeah.
do really enjoy that.
Me too.
And like you said, sometimes I wish, like I love like the modern stuff, don't get me wrong, like I love how like
Yes.
clean and crisp everything is. But if they took a modern day and they made like original sets
Oh yeah.
and just made them kind of look like the original sets, but like cleaned them up a little bit, I
Yeah.
think that'd be pretty cool.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That'd be
I
pretty
think the
special.
fans would go even farther and respect Strange New World if they just took everything that they had,
Yeah,
rebuilt the sets, and then just did stuff a little bit more. Like, don't film things like how they did in the '60s. Film it like they do now. So
yeah.
use that like that Mandalorian. I can't think of what it's called. Like that thing, that big depth like
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
television screen thing, like just use that type of technology, but like leave the sets a little more retro instead of
Yeah,
making it so modern and so glossy.
yeah.
Yeah. Not that I don't think, I know there's people out there that don't like Strange New Worlds, and that's fine. That's always the caveat. But
There's
to
always
me,
gonna be somebody that doesn't like something.
right. But I think by and large, I think almost everybody enjoys this more than
Yeah.
anything.
It's one of those things where it's like it has to be modern. It has to be
Yes.
like sleek for like today's audience.
Well, the really funny thing is that I don't like, I get it and I understand why they're doing it, and it is what it is. But the thing I get kind of tired of hearing, it's kind of like the thing when you say it with George Lucas, like it was all part of my original vision.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, the thing that kind of I get annoyed with is, so like '60s television always had like a moral, right? Star Trek had a moral at the end of the episode, like, oh,
Yeah.
should we have done this? Should we have done that? All these type of things. And then you go to the '80s series with Patrick Stewart, and it's like it's the same thing. Typically, there's a
Yeah.
moral at the end of the story, and blah blah blah. But then
Yeah.
somewhere in the like mid 2010s, they were like, you know what? We instead of just looking at what Star Trek was, which was people wrote episodes that had a moral and had like real, you had to think about it. Like it was television that you had to think about. You couldn't just like
Yeah.
blindly watch it for brain candy. It was like, no, this is really gonna talk about something here. This is really gonna tackle like a social or political, it's gonna make commentary on something that's relevant to our modern society.
Yeah.
And somebody sat there and was like, well, that Star Trek always tries to encapsulate the viewers of that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, did it though? I don't think it did. I think it was just a television show. And if it just if people took interest of it during that decade, then that's just what happened.
Yeah,
I don't
right.
think any of the writers or producers thought, well, this is an 80s, 90s, or a 60s television program, so we're going to make sure that we tackle things like that and make it fit to those people. So
yeah, maybe my history is really bad, but I don't see any correlation between like the time period.
right.
In fact, I see the opposite. I see, the 50s being very, there's a lot of like racism and,
Right.
like male domination and stuff.
Right.
And this episode was a perfect example of that, where it's like you have women doing stuff on the ship, and you also have Spock like yelling at that, or not. You have Kirk yelling at that guy. Like you keep your bigotry to yourself.
Yeah.
Like basically shut up. Like and I think that's very forward for that time period. Even like everybody always says like Uhura being on the ship. I mean, she's like a main character.
Yeah.
Being like a black female on a main show.
Right in the middle of the 60s.
In that time period, it's so, to me it feels like the opposite of that. Like,
right. It's always supposed to be like,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, they're not commenting on it. They're saying like, hey, this is the future, and all this awful stuff that's happening now, it doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
So they're not even talking about it.
And that is the thing that's why they did what they did with the timeline thing in season 2 of Strange New World. They're like, well, if stuff was supposed to happen in the 90s in Star Trek and it didn't, and then World War III is supposed to happen in a couple of years from now, but that's scary. They were just like, well, we can't have that be the case. World War III has to be farther down the timeline so that humans, can not be scared about that in reality, whatever. And it's like, and the eugenics war isn't in the 90s. It's like current in a couple of years from now. So that like people of our day can watch it and go like, yes, but there's a future for me. I don't get it. It's just like, it's okay. Like, it's
a TV show.
Just show that like in Star Trek, there's a nice future for humans, and that's it. That's all the show ever was. It wasn't like you got to sit there and be like, well, no. They always wrote to the fact that when people are watching it in the 80s, they were like, well, this is the future. Like, no, they just wrote a show.
Yeah. We don't want to scare people, so
right. So yeah,
I'm sorry, but if you're watching Star Trek and they're talking about stuff that happened in that timeline, and you're thinking like, oh man, I hope that doesn't happen in my timeline, it's like maybe you need to like not watch television,
right? Yeah,
because that's very, very weird.
Yeah. That's literally what happened. The eugenics war happens in the 90s. You'll get into it. There's an episode coming up. We'll get into it. They talk about it happening in the 90s, and the writers went, oh, no.
Yeah.
Because that didn't happen actually in real life, so therefore we have to advance when it happens, because it didn't actually happen in real life.
Yeah.
And you're like,
yeah, not a fan of that.
And I get it. It's also a 60s show commenting and saying, well, 30 years from now, this terrible thing's going to happen. Like, I get it. It's an antiquated thing. It's kind of like watching Back to the Future, and the cars are flying in 2015. And you're like, well, that was 8 years ago and there's no flying cars. But you're not like, what a stupid movie. You're not like, I can't relate to this.
To your point, that's like going back and editing Back to the Future and making the time period like 2065.
Right, exactly.
And then like re-releasing it and being like, see, look, it's still in the future.
Right, exactly.
It's like, why just let it exist. Just let it exist.
Like, it's okay. I'm okay. I have enough intelligence that I can say, yes, it was an 80s movie, and they said, here, let's be funny and advanced 30 years and say, wouldn't it be funny if we had flying cars? Like, ha ha ha. I get it. Like the Jetsons also, I think, take place like in the 80s or the 90s, like in the future. It's like, it's fine. It's okay.
Don't start talking about the Jetsons because that's
I see. That's a touchy subject.
No, that needs to be retconned.
I see. I got you.
Having robots as indentured servants.
All right. Well, we're going to talk about the Balance of Terror now. So let's get into the teaser. So Captain James T. Kirk is officiating a wedding between two crew members, Angelina Martine and Robert Tomlinson, when suddenly a red alert klaxon interrupts the ceremony, followed by a request for Captain Kirk to report to the bridge. Kirk learns that Earth Outpost 4 is under attack as everyone runs to battle stations. I like that opening thing where Spock updates him at the comm thing and he goes over because Bones is like, hey, there's a thing they're calling from it for the bridge. And Spock's talking to him about the outposts aren't 1 and 2. I don't think are responding. And then Kirk turns and sees in the doorway the bride. And he's just like, you can tell he wants to go to the bridge and like deal with what's happening. But he's also like, yeah, but this is important too. So he's like, kind of like hushly says to Spock, like, okay, like make way for it. I'll talk to you later. Like,
yeah.
I just really enjoyed William Shatner's
I do like that
choices, like acting decisions that he made for those lines.
Yep. Yeah, and he's also thinking like, I'm really good at giving like wedding talks, so I can just do this really quick and be back on the bridge in like 10 minutes,
Yeah, true.
And he does such a better job than Pike because he actually like knows the people, right?
He knows what's going on.
Yeah.
So they're right. So isn't that funny? Like it's pretty cool that the episode starts with the wedding, and so when he goes back in time, he's immediately at the wedding.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
because that's right when they're kind of finding out, like, hey, these bases are not responding. They're probably blown up.
Yeah, right. And the thing that I didn't mention in the other episode because I wanted you to see this episode first. Did you notice there's a couple things that happen in this episode that are direct callbacks? Well, like Strange New World is calling back to the 60s series, but if you're watching it the way we watched it, then it looks like it's just carrying over. But specifically, there's a couple shots where Kirk has like the light on him like this.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's like angled and it's just on his eyes. It's like he's shaded on the top and shaded on the bottom, but he has like a band of light over his eyes.
Yeah.
So if you go back to the Strange New Worlds episode, so does Pike. They film it in the same way where like when stuff's happening and they're doing close-ups on people, they film like they did in the 60s.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I didn't like overly pick up on that. I'll have to go back and watch. I want to go back and watch the Strange New World episode now.
Yeah, absolutely. But and then the other thing is when the base blows up, they do like a rapid like white flash on the bridge, but they did the same thing on Strange New World. When it blows up, they do that and it's like flashing white and stuff. It's cool how they do.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering if they were even going to show the base blowing up because of like the time, because of the time period.
Yeah.
It's like I don't think that they would know they would do that on the monitor, but like you definitely get to see the guy like in the thing. It's like you see what happened? Do you see it? Do you see it, Kirk? Do you see Enterprise? This base was solid steel.
Yeah. Yeah. When we get there, I'll talk about him. So, okay.
Yeah. The one lighting thing I did notice was that so the art for our show is kind of based on some of those like cards, those like collector things that you were showing me. But this episode very much like, so when they were like hiding, with the power out, and they had like the red alert still kind of on.
Oh yeah,
Kirk was standing on the bridge, and like the back of him was like red,
yes,
like outlined red, and he had like blue light in the front.
yeah.
And I was like, man, that's like that must be where that kind of like artwork style comes from. It's like
Maybe, yeah, maybe
the ship lights, you know.
it definitely
was kinda
adds
cool.
like a different feel to that. Yeah.
It does. Yeah, it's weird.
All right, the USS Enterprise investigates in the vicinity of the Romulan neutral zone, where an unknown assailant is methodically destroying each of the Earth's outposts bordering the zone. Spock explains to the crew that the neutral zone was established after the Earth-Romulan War over a century ago. Neither race has had contact with the other since that time, and neither side knows what the other looks like. Kirk then tells the crew that while self-defense is permitted, they are forbidden by Starfleet Command's orders to violate the neutral zone. The Enterprise and its crew are to be considered expendable. So the
I
only thing
like
that
that. I like that speech.
yes. Oh, I think where he's talking about, like, I'm just letting you know, like, we're not going to
Yeah,
cross over
we're
because not.
basically like they Starfleet doesn't care if we blow up too. So just letting you know. All right, everybody, carry on with your duty.
Yeah. So other than the atomic reference of like atomic weapons used and calling them primitive,
Mm-hmm.
all of that stuff that they're referring to is literally like after is supposedly I think like a year or months after the last episode of Enterprise that you saw. So that's what they're talking about. So when he's saying atomic weapons and primitive ships and all this stuff, he's literally referring to like Archer and stuff. That's what they're implying. That's what they're implying. Now, obviously, in the 60s show, there was no Captain Archer. He didn't exist, right? Like they didn't know.
Right.
About it.
Yeah.
But now an actual Star Trek timeline where what you're watching, when they say over a century ago, they're saying Archer's time. So literally, like our RPG, that around that time is like this is the time that they're referring to.
It was like the atomic age of space travel.
Right. Yeah.
But didn't Archer's ship have
Yes.
They had like torpedoes and phase.
They had stuff. So that's kind of the thing that, you know, people like hardcore fans don't like about Enterprise is it feels a little more advanced, but at the same time, it's just a line. But yeah, they make Spock in this episode makes Enterprise, Captain Archer's time, sound like they had like sticks and stones in space and were whipping them at each other. That's how he makes it sound.
Right.
But that's the cool thing. So when he's referring to all of that stuff, that's what he's talking about. It's all the NX class ships fighting, like that's what it is. Now in accepted like what do you call it? Like sort of canon, because they never showed the Earth Romulan War. This is all you get. You get the weird Romulan episode where that like spinning jellyfish weird crab ship can change its appearance into other ships, and Malcolm and Trip are on it trying to disable it because it's like making itself look like a Tellarite ship or a Vulcan ship or a right. So there's that, like that's what you see. Then they don't show the Earth Romulan War, and then the next time they talk about it is this episode, other than the Strange New World stuff. So
I remember that's what you were saying, that like all the fans are always hoping for like the Romulan War, like early era.
Yeah, like show this.
So basically the Romulan War took place like in Archer's history.
It literally takes place like eight months or a year after the last episode you saw.
Oh, wow.
So in reality, season 5 was going to be this of Enterprise.
Oh,
they were
man.
going to get into the Earth Romulan War in season 5.
So that's why everybody's mad.
Yeah. Because season 4 started to get really good, and then they canceled it, and then you hear down the line, like years later, they were like, "Yeah, we got that guy. I forgot what his name is, Manny Kodo, I think." They're like, we got this
Mhm.
guy and producer and writer on the show, and he was doing all this great stuff, and then they canceled it, and they were like, yeah, and he talked about they were going to get to the Earth Romulan War, and everybody was like, great.
Cool. And then, but you're forgetting though, but then they came out with Discovery. And everything was right with the world again.
That's right. That's right. I forgot. You're right.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. You don't need to tell me.
Yeah. So that's just so for your benefit.
I kind of figured that was that time period.
Yeah.
The atomic weapons kind of threw me off because, like
Yes.
I said, I knew they had they had phasers and photon cannons and
Yeah.
well, that's the thing from like the rating standpoint. Then if when Archer first goes out to deliver that Klingon, if they literally had like space torpedoes, like warheads, like nuclear, like space torpedoes and stuff.
Yeah.
And then when they came back and got refitted, they said like, hey, so we just developed these like phasers while you guys were gone.
Right.
And then
right.
refitted the ship with that. Like that, I think the fans would have been a little bit happier.
Yeah. I think to be fair, we'd have to go through and do a complete breakdown of the show, but I think they just call them like spatial torpedoes. I don't know if they really get into like how they're made. So
Yeah.
like in a technical sense, they could very well just be nuclear fission torpedoes. They just don't express that. I just don't know.
They might be. Yeah.
Okay. Lieutenant Stiles assumes the attacking vessel is Romulan, but Kirk points out that after a century, no one would know what a Romulan ship looks like. Stiles shares his knowledge of Romulan ship markings as a number of his relatives died in the Earth Romulan War. Their war, Mr. Stiles, says Kirk, not yours.
And you'll be smart to remember that. My great grandpappy was killed by Romulan.
Earth Outposts 2 and 3 are found to be destroyed, and the Enterprise briefly contacts Outpost 4. The sole survivor of Outpost 4, Commander Hansen, describes a powerful blast of energy from a ship they couldn't track and the destruction of Outpost 8. He then reports that the ship has reappeared. A view relayed from the outpost sensors shows the ship firing, and then the viewing screen goes blank.
Do you see it, Enterprise? Do you see it, Enterprise? It's coming right for me, Enterprise.
So, I don't know.
So that's not the same guy.
Nope. Okay.
Obviously not the same actor, but it's not the same named character either.
Well, it is the same named character.
Really?
It is, and that's the conundrum.
I thought his name was
Asala, right?
Yeah. Last
But
name.
his first name is Hansen. Yeah, so his last name is Al-Salah, but his first name is Hansen. So it's supposed to be the same guy.
Interesting.
He goes from being from Strange New Worlds, where he is like it says here he has Pakistani parents, so he has like Middle Eastern features to an old like white guy.
Yeah. So that is like an obvious
Yes,
like modern day thing of having more like people included, which is fine. But like they kind of made up his last name then, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Despite him being called Commander Hansen, which is weird because Hansen would be his first name.
First name, yeah.
Unless I'm being ignorant and not realizing that in Middle Eastern culture you called them by their first name type of thing. I don't know.
I think on star bases you go by first name. And on ships you go by last names.
Maybe that's what it is.
I don't know. I think it's just a modernization thing.
But yeah, so it's I like the thing that Spock shows, the little Romulan border thing and the outposts, and and I like the fact that they talked about them being established on asteroids, so that they use that in Strange New Worlds, like that they were established on asteroids, and
Yeah.
He talks about being, miles deep in iron and all this stuff. And when it blows up,
Yeah.
the same like flashing white light thing happens. And yeah, it was same. I mean, it was just like, it was like watching that part from Strange New World where instead of it being Pike, it's Kirk. And it's like,
Yeah.
like you were doing.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. Do
Yeah,
you see it?
Do you see it, Enterprise? It's on my screen, Enterprise. Sharing screen now, Enterprise. Oh my God, it's coming back.
Spock's sensors detect a moving object, but nothing is visible on the screen. He suggests that the Romulans have some sort of invisibility shield. Since the Romulan ship seems to be in no hurry, Kirk theorizes that it may not be aware of the Enterprise. Spock then reports that the ship is heading back towards the neutral zone.
The same direction a Romulan ship would take.
To go home.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I can't remember, but in the Quality of Mercy episode, is Kirk the one who says that on the other ship, on the Farragut? Does he say, "Oh, if we can't see him, he may not be able to see us"?
I think so.
Or is it Pike who says it? See, that's the thing. I don't remember who says the line.
I don't know because it's Pike's decision to trail them and become their
Sure.
mirror. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it seems like he would have been the one that came up with that realization that they probably don't sense them. Right? Because even he didn't Pike as well, he was the one that said they have to come out of visibility to fire their weapon.
Then they kind of just disappear.
Yeah, I don't know who said that line. I feel like Kirk in Strange New Worlds said a few of the same exact
that's
lines.
how I felt too. Yeah, I know. I felt the same way too. I was like, I think he says that in the other episode.
Yeah, I know now. I got to rewatch it. Side by side, start them at the same time.
Two different screens.
Yep.
Right when the wedding starts, like play them at the same rate. Yeah.
Start them both at red alert.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
All right. Despite objections from Styles, Kirk orders a parallel course instead of an intercept course. By matching the unknown ship's course and speed, he hopes to make the Enterprise seem like an echo. Under no circumstances is the Enterprise to enter the Romulan neutral zone without a direct order from Kirk. Styles points out that there could be Romulan spies on board the Enterprise, and Sulu recommends maintaining a security alert.
He sure does.
Here is the wild thing that I didn't even know about until I was trying to read up and get some extra goodies for this. So in this scene, it says a portion with the doomed Commander Hansen was filmed but cut from the final episode. In it, Hansen informs Kirk that the Romulan vessel is of Starship design and that the Romulans had probably stolen Earth designs via espionage and traders. This is the basis for Styles' remarks in scene 52, which is the scene we just talked about a vessel remarkably similar to ours and having Romulan spies aboard the Enterprise, which was aired and before he even knew what Romulans looked like. So the reason why he says that is because Hansen basically suggests that there's like spies and traitors.
Wow. I was wondering where that line came from.
Like, why did that happen? Yeah. So now I can finally talk about it because I was sitting on it a little bit. The Ortegas thing. I strongly feel, yes, she's annoying in the Quality of Mercy episode, and she's supposed to be like Styles, but I think in general, this is the character that they looked to make Ortegas like. They looked at a character in the 60s and they were like, hey, you know how some of the people like at the helm are jerks? They're like, this is what we're going to do. We're going to make Ortegas a kind of jerk character because there's characters in the 60s who are jerk characters.
Interesting.
So that's why originally I talked about it, I said, well, I think they're trying to hearken to something. They're trying to call to something. And I think this is what it is.
Well, this is the first episode that I noticed that there was anybody on board that kind of like talked back to the captain.
True. Very true. Listen here, mister.
Yeah, isn't it funny when they started calling him Mister instead of like
Lieutenant
name?
or whatever, yeah.
Even when he was like in like the bed. All right, Mister. I thought that was funny.
So I think that Styles, there's definitely other people who sit at the navigation and are like always balk back at Kirk, Not every episode, but there are episodes similar to this where guys turn around and they're like, you got to be kidding me, blah, 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 whatever. And I think that they're like, instead of it being one singular episode where this random guy sits in the seat and you never see him again, we're going to make a character always be like that because that is how the 60s show was. And you're like, okay. So.
Well, yeah.
I'm like 50-50 with her character. Some of her stuff is totally fine and she's just a different character. And the other 50% is like, you're pulling too hard on the turn around and talk back to the captain, like string too much.
Yeah.
But that's
well, because here's the thing, right? Is that in this episode, very specifically, like this guy was so like adamant because his family members had fought in the war.
Right.
Ortega has no connection to anything in any episode.
No.
He just does that. Like this episode makes sense that he would kind of, balk at the captain because he's like, he has a connection to this.
Yeah.
And
you definitely understand his anger and his like anxiety about the Romulan stuff. But when he starts to put it on the Spock, you're like, okay, buddy, like relax. Remember this guy you've been serving with this whole time and he's not doing anything. He's never done anything. Like, it's okay.
Yeah. I kind of like that though, because I like to see Kirk really kind of dig in to people like that on board and be like, hey, so you might want to knock it off.
Yeah.
You questioning my decision? Because that sounds like mutiny to me.
Oh, no, sir. No.
Oh, no. Oh, that's interesting. So you don't want to be in the brig. Interesting. Well, carry on.
Carry on.
Why don't you just keep the communication lines open? Or no, he's the navigator.
He's the navigator, yeah.
Yeah, just keep looking at the map, buddy. The funniest thing about the navigator in this episode is like they're in the middle of nowhere space. They're in this like neutral, just vast emptiness.
Got to make sure you don't cross that line, that imaginary line.
Yeah.
All right. Uhura picks up a communication signal through which Spock is able to obtain a view of the Romulan ship's interior, providing the Federation their first visuals of the Romulans. Styles noticed the Romulan captain's physical resemblance to Spock.
Yep.
Bum, bum.
They look a lot more like Spock in the show.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yes.
They don't have like that defined like eyebrow, like.
So the thing that Strange New Worlds makes them look like Next Generation Romulans. Because the Romulans do eventually change a little. They look like Vulcans, but they also don't really look like Vulcans. So they kind of just
look like Vulcan cavemen.
Correct.
That's what they look like in Enterprise for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And they absolutely look like, Next Gen.
Yeah.
They don't show up a
Cool.
ton. They don't show up a ton in the original series, the Romulans.
Yeah.
They do a couple times, but not that much. But in next gen, it's like they show up so frequently.
That's what
So,
it is. It's the Romulan.
yeah. As Uhura attempts to interpret the Romulan signal, Styles sarcastically suggests giving the job to Spock. Kirk orders him to keep his bigotry to himself. So the thing I liked was he was like, "Yeah, give it to Spock," and he was like, "What's that? What's that, buddy?"
Oh, what are you suggesting? Because Spock is a genius and a science officer, well above your pay grade. That might be what I was suggesting. Oh, were you suggesting it because he's handsome and as beautiful he is? Is that what you're implying?
Listen here, Mister. You keep your bigotry in your quarters, not here on the bridge.
Yeah. Keep it in your quarters. So he's just like in his like tiny little bunk, and he's like, I
That's Star Trek. They still have bigotry. They just keep it private.
They keep it in their room where it belongs. They let it fester. They're in their room.
Yep.
That's good.
Meanwhile, on the bridge of the Romulan ship, the Romulan commander has noticed the Enterprise following them. He confers with one of his officers, the Centurion, on the ethics of their mission. He then rebukes and demotes another officer, Decius, for dispatching a subspace message in violation of orders for radio silence. The Centurion warns the commander that Decius has powerful friends. The commander quietly expresses distaste for the mission, but assures the Centurion of his devotion to his duty. So the really cool thing about this that I liked is that Decius, who clearly gets demoted for violating radio silence.
Yeah.
He clearly is the guy in Strange New Worlds who calls
Yes.
and like brings all of the ships to the border. That's why when the Centurion is like, "Hey, that guy has a lot of powerful friends," he's just like, "Whatever." The commander's like, "I don't care."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And because they didn't prolong it,
Right.
I feel like those ships didn't get there right in time.
Right.
Because Pike really kind of prolonged on the edge of like, what should we do type of thing.
They make him wait. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah.
Well, they don't even get to the border, I don't think, right?
No.
Because in Strange New Worlds, they get like right to like Romulan like border, right on the other side of the border.
Yeah, they make a certain Kirk and Pike make certain decisions here where the other guy where they don't. Like, it's like Pike makes this decision and Kirk makes this decision, and you start to see like where the branch is starting to happen.
Yeah, it's interesting too. Like they both kind of struggled with their decisions.
Yeah,
because Kirk takes everybody to like the war room.
Mm-hmm. Which is this part right here. Let me say it.
Yeah.
So in the Enterprise briefing room, the officers discuss their chances against the Romulan ship. Spock demonstrates the effect of the Romulan weapon on Outpost 4's protective shields.
Oh, yeah.
And Scott reports that the Romulan ship's power is simple impulse. Style urges an attack, arguing from history that running would guarantee war. Spock agrees, pointing out that Vulcan had begun to colonize space before giving up its warlike ways, and that if the Romulans are indeed descended from ancient Vulcans, they are more dangerous than Kirk might realize. After a moment, Kirk gives the order to attack. The Enterprise heads into battle at red alert.
What I liked was that so M'Benga and Bones are both in this, like they both have the same feeling.
Yes.
Right? Like you don't know what's gonna happen. That's an act of war. Like you shouldn't do this.
Right.
And I think Spock feels the same way in Strange New Worlds, doesn't he? Where he says, like, don't show weakness.
Right. Yeah.
That I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah. This is kind of the point where two different things where Pike basically instead of agreeing with everybody at the table that we probably should fight, he thinks, I think we should talk to him.
Right. Yeah, because Spock wanted to fight him and Ortega wanted to fight him, but he kind of went along with M'Benga.
I think even Kirk at the table is like, no, we should probably take it to him, but like, hey, whatever. Like, whatever.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Looking at it from a time traveling perspective of an episode, to be like, you're understanding, really, this episode becomes like a pivotal part of history, right?
Yeah.
Like, if Kirk had decided to be diplomat, well, that's the thing that I was going to talk about, but I guess we can talk about it here. Was the thing I liked retrospectively watching this episode and the other episode that I liked a lot was the fact that they wrote the Romulan character, and Pike and Kirk very well.
Mm-hmm.
So that you see, okay, the Romulan commander is a very smart, strategic, military guy. He's got all that stuff down. He's a good ship commander. He knows how to handle things. But then on the other side of it, he has his dialogue, which he's like, I'm so sick of this.
Yeah.
So tired of this.
You're starting another war, right?
Exactly. And you see that Kirk, who matches his strategic, militaristic, good starship commander way of thinking, that's where this episode goes. But then you watch Pike connect to his, like, I'm so tired of this. I'm so sick of war being on the table. You see Pike plug into that, and then that branch goes that way. And it's fascinating that that's how they do it. That Kirk appeals to this side of the commander, and Pike appeals to this side of the commander. It's the same, it's just the other side of the coin of the same coin. But the thing that now is interesting, which they won't do, but is interesting retrospective, is what if Pike attacked, or what if Kirk was diplomatic? Like, what would then happen? You know what I mean?
Sounds like Star Trek needs its own, like, what if series.
Yeah, right.
That would be cool.
And I almost wondered, looking back at how this episode ends and things that the commander says, I almost wonder if some of the fans and some of the writers for Strange New Worlds were like, this commander kind of gets a bum deal, right? Because it kind of seems like he didn't want to do what he had to do. He was just doing it because it was expected of him to fight back and to be strategic and, like, have mastery over his ship. And I think maybe the fans or people or writers were just like, yeah, but what if he was given the opportunity to be like, what would happen if you gave him a diplomatic approach? How would he respond? And I think that was Strange New World's answer.
Yeah.
Instead of being combative and aggressive with him, what if you're more passive and more, appealing to him?
He's dead either way, basically.
He's dead either way. And in fact, going down the road with Pike, it's like, well, it results in now another Earth Romulan war, right? Like, another war happens. And this time it's awful. And it's lasting decades, because when Pike shows up, he's clearly older. He's in a different uniform, which we know is now years after his time. Like, the uniform's different.
Yeah, and Spock's dead.
And Spock is dead, or at least very, like, mutilated. So.
Yeah, right. Because doesn't he say, like, Spock is basically the key?
Yes.
So I still haven't seen really how that plays out.
Yeah, it'll be a long time before you see that.
Good. Good.
Really good.
The longer the better.
Yes. Yeah, so that was just what I was thinking about when I was watching the episode.
Yeah, it's really cool. As soon as we watched that episode of Strange New Worlds, and you're like, oh yeah, this is basically an episode from the original series, I was like, oh, that's really, like, that's a really cool concept. Like, I was really excited to watch this episode.
I really thought I was really hoping that when we were talking about it and going through it, I was like, "Don't tell him. Don't let him know it's in an episode." Like, I wanted you to be so not surprised,
Yeah.
but just like not expecting it to be what it was. But
Well, but so yeah, you didn't spoil it. It was basically just the way that episode was written to be like, hey, so like you're not supposed to be this person. Like this is supposed to happen. Like Kirk is supposed to do this.
Yeah.
So already I was like, there must be something from like Kirk's timeline that they show.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like it. I like it a lot. And I was expecting both of the wedding kids to live. It's bull. That's BS.
But I think in the Strange New Worlds episode and in this episode, it's reversed.
She dies?
I think she dies. I think she's on the med table, and the husband, the fiance is.
Oh, I thought I remember that they both died. No, maybe not.
Maybe
No.
I don't. I thought it was reversed, but yeah.
Why? So does she have some significant role on the ship then that she needed
I
to?
think so. I think they were just showing. I think they were just trying to be like, look, the other one's dead because it's different.
Because it's a different time.
Yeah,
but wouldn't it be funny though if like she is more pivotal than he is, like to something like leading in the future?
It would be a pretty cool beat if they
so like
decided
that also like in Pike's timeline that also led to like even worse stuff was that like she had died instead of the husband.
Like she does make some sort of like invention or a revelation, or she becomes a diplomat, or like her relatives or ancestors, like people from her family, end up doing something amazing.
She hits the phase button like a little bit faster.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's the silly thing that you and I always talk about, where it's like, or it's just like, yes, but it's different.
Yeah. Get it?
Yeah.
It's so much worse.
So much worse. So we're at the middle of the episode. So go down to the comment section and write the secret word "mangled Spock." That's what I want to see in the comments.
Mangled Spock. Wow.
So, following the Romulan ship's path towards a comet's tail, Kirk orders the Enterprise to jump forward and attack the Romulan ship when its trail becomes visible. The Romulan commander hopes to double back to intercept the Enterprise, but on learning that his target is no longer following, orders an evasive maneuver. Each commander, having failed in his plans, reflects on the other's intelligence. I'll never make that mistake again.
Oh, he's doing exactly what I would do. Like that one scene too, where he's like, "How is he in my head? How is he always knowing?
Read my thoughts.
Get out of my brain.
Get out."
Yeah. I like their helmets.
Right? So great thing you said it, because I got a little tidbit for you. So tell me why they had helmets.
They don't have to do prosthetics and stuff.
Yes. Yeah. We don't have to make a ton of rubber ears. We can just put helmets on their heads.
Seems like that'd be so much more work.
Hey,
do you want to glue these ears on, or do you want to build 7 unique helmets that look like you split a watermelon and shoved it on your head?
Apparently, it was easier to do that than to just glue some stuff on their ears.
I don't buy it.
Maybe it was really funny. Maybe they didn't make these things. They were just, like you said, they were like weird, like just containers that they had for things. And they were just like, put this over their heads. Yeah. They didn't even make them. They just found them and painted them and then slapped and put them on their heads.
They painted them gold.
Yeah.
It is very funny.
These are things that protect pumpkins.
These are pumpkin holders. They'll work for your brains. What are brains if not pumpkins? That is very funny.
Yeah. So, a barrage of phaser fire damages the Romulan ship. The Centurion pushes the Romulan commander out of the way of falling debris, but is fatally injured himself. Meanwhile, the phaser circuits on the Enterprise burn out as the Romulan ship fires its primary weapon. Kirk orders full astern, and as the Enterprise backs up, they find that the weapon has a range limit, which causes the shot to partially dissipate, resulting in reduced impact.
So here's the thing.
Yeah, okay.
I like the fact that they do that to show you like it has a range.
Yeah.
But this is one of my biggest like pet peeves in like any show or movie where like something is coming like straight at you. Like even like, you know, like a tree falling or an avalanche or anything like that. And it's an organic thing, so it's not gonna, you know.
Right. I know what you mean. Yeah.
It's going straight like a train.
Right.
How many movies you see people run away from trains?
They just run down the track.
Like, oh my god, just go sideways. just turn sideways. So that's the thing I'll say about that is like it's coming straight at them. They're like, put it in full reverse. Reverse. And like, like, okay, how faster? And like, so we're already doing warp 5 in reverse. Like, first of all, I didn't know that was even a thing you could do. And second of all, it's like even like modern Star Trek stuff sometimes, like I tell you, like all the time, like the space battles are kind of boring.
Yes.
But I, you know, it's because I'm used to stuff where stuff is zipping in and out and, you know, they're dog fighting and stuff.
Yeah.
And like Star Trek, they're always just like reverse thrusters.
yeah.
But it's one of those things like this thing is coming straight at them and they're just backing up. It's like, hey, I don't know. Here's an idea.
Right. Nope.
Like, no, I can't do that.
The thing that also made me laugh was like he's like, okay, full thing, like you said, emergency warp thing. And it's like they're at warp and this thing is following them at warp and they're going so far away.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, this really
it's like you would be so far away from the neutral zone in the Romulan ship, and by the time you got back to him at that warp, like he would be gone. And two, when you watch the Strange New Worlds episode, they're not, you know, warp length away from each other. They're just a little bit farther than the Farragut. And it's like, it wasn't as damaging. And you're like, yeah, but then you watch this episode, it's like, oh God, warp factor 5 in reverse, go. And they're like, we can't, you know, and it's just like, I don't know. It's just, I was like, there's a little bit of a disconnect here.
Yeah. So obviously that's one of the things that like Strange New Worlds got a little bit better, like a little bit more, made more sense, you know?
Yeah. But I did like the little puffy like ring effect when it was like,
yeah, when it was phasing out.
Yeah. Did you enjoy that when they were like fire phasers? It was basically like photon torpedoes. It was like boom, boom, instead of like phasers are always like beams, you know?
Yeah, I did like that.
This is like the only time I think in Star Trek when they're like fire this thing of phasers and they show like basically photon torpedoes.
Funny.
I don't know why.
Well, it's funny that they even have two. They have like two cannons.
Yeah.
And they both shoot like pew, pew. Like, why do you have two? Why do you need two? Just put one in the center of the ship. I also love too when they're like, oh, hitting them at this range with these things is almost impossible.
Yeah.
Why can't you aim them? I don't understand why. You're just blindly like blind firing, like pew, pew.
And they hit them every time.
If the ship is pointed at the target, it seems like the beams will go at the target.
No. Okay. Determined to prevent the Romulan ship from re-entering the neutral zone, Kirk orders another barrage of phaser fire. Unable to stop the Romulan ship and aware of the consequences, Kirk orders the Enterprise into the neutral zone. Displaying restrained emotion as his friend dies, the Romulan commander orders all debris and, sadly, the body of his friend into the escape chute as a decoy. The Enterprise picks up the debris on the sensors, but in doing so, loses track of the Romulan ship.
Yeah, that was a pretty cool tactic, I thought.
The thing that made me laugh from these two scenes was like, I don't know. I thought about going back and like slowing down the footage, but then I was like, I don't care that much. Is when the part of the Romulan ship ceiling is like coming down and the Centurion pushes him. I was like,
oh
it
yeah,
kind of looks like it hits the commander and then falls onto the Centurion.
Oh, it definitely does. Yeah.
But and the other thing too was when the fire is underneath and the phaser thing underneath the science station where Spock is, like Leonard Nimoy literally like smacks fire. Like he literally puts his hand.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah,
he's
he
like,
does.
smack,
Yeah.
smack, 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 smack. And I was just like, whoa, dude.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I really like that. Yeah, because I could see it in there. I was like, man, that's like real fire in there.
They
And
didn't
it's just
care
like,
in the
oh
60s.
nope, no fire in here. There's another scene too later on where like the Enterprise gets hit,
Yeah.
and Uhura goes all the way from her chair all the way over to the door.
Oh yeah.
Like
yes.
if you can like, it's like the one thing I kind of like caught out of the corner of my eye was her going like like walking over to the door.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that's
There's a
pretty
massive
rough.
explosion.
That's a rough beam right there.
Yeah. I did think though in this particular scene that when Spock is scanning the like debris, and he's like, "Oh, it's this thing and this thing and this thing in a body," and he goes, "Too small, not the ship."
Yeah, yeah, I know. But then later on, he's like, "Oh, it's a really small metal craft," and they're like, "Shoot it, shoot it!" Like,
Get out of here!
like, oh no, it was a warp head, not a shuttle pod.
Yeah. Goodbye, my friend.
Goodbye, dear friend. I did like that, but also the thing that I thought of immediately,
Yeah,
because they do that again, where they're like, "All right, load more scrap metal into the escape pod."
yeah.
But picture like the escape, the jettison bay, and it's
Oh.
just like a bunch of like metal, just piles of metal down there, and there's like one guy down there.
Yeah.
And then he like loads the guy in. They just keep scrap.
It's just like anytime stuff comes down or breaks, they just drag, instead of using parts to put it back together, they're just dragging it down the hall in corridors and putting it in this room where this one Romulan is working. Oh god.
Well, that's what they did with the ceiling part that came down and killed the commander guy.
True.
Like, load it into the bay.
Launch it at them. Yeah.
Just in case they ever need to do that technique where they send a bunch of metal out.
Yeah.
That is kind of smart though. Like they turn off all the power and they shoot all the scrap metal out so it looks like a debris field.
Yeah.
Like it.
Not the Spock though. He's always on it. He's always on it.
Nope. There's one body, sir.
Not enough.
Nope. That couldn't be. Keep firing.
Oh, we've ran scanners on his body, and his body was crushed, not post-mortem.
Something fell on his head.
Yeah,
this wasn't from an explosion.
That didn't happen. It has come down to a waiting game, and both ships have powered down in the neutral zone to prevent detection. After the Enterprise has been powered down for 9 hours and 47 minutes, Kirk tries to rest in his quarters when Yeoman Rand walks in and asks the captain if he would like something to eat from the galley. Kirk shakes his head and tells Rand to get him coffee and have it on the bridge, as he will be heading up there soon. Just then, Dr. McCoy arrives as Rand leaves. Kirk confesses that he wishes he were on a cruise somewhere with no responsibility. He admits to McCoy that when his crew looks to him to make the next move, he wonders, what if I'm wrong? McCoy struggles at first to come up with an answer to this, and Kirk does not expect him to provide one. However, McCoy puts his hand on Kirk's shoulder and gently says, "In this galaxy, there's a mathematical probability of 3 million Earth-type planets. And in all the universe, 3 million galaxies like this. And in all of that, and perhaps more, only one of each of us. Don't destroy the one named Kirk."
Yeah. That's pretty good advice.
Yep.
What does he say to him? He says, like, yeah, I don't usually tell this to clients.
Customers, he calls them, yeah.
Yeah, customers. Like, I don't pay you for medical service. Starfleet pays.
Yeah.
He gave him this weird look, too, when he walked in and the yeoman was in there. He gave him this weird, like, oh. Like,
Oh. Well,
oh.
we did learn.
I have a beautiful yeoman.
Yes, right. We did learn in the naked time. He's got a little thing for Yeoman Rand, so and it comes back.
Yeoman.
It comes back. It comes back. Remember when they think they're gonna get blown up?
Yeah,
It comes back. Yep.
Oh yeah, he holds her. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, he looks at her, and she's like, "Captain," and he's like, and he turns
Captain,
away.
Hold me.
Hold me.
I sure hope my shirt doesn't get ripped.
But it's a good quote by McCoy. Everybody likes it. It's a good. Don't destroy the one named Kirk. Everyone likes that. So
Yeah, I do. I did like that. I like McCoy anyway, you know.
yeah, McCoy's a cool character.
Both versions. I like him. And I
Carl
like
Urban?
the Chris Pine. Yeah.
Wow, Carl
He's pretty
Urban's a
good.
great actor. And
I really like him. Yeah.
he understood the assignment when he was getting casted. So
Yeah, he gets it. The scene that you have in the intro of our podcast where he says, "Well, at least I won't die alone." It's like my favorite when Spock gets beamed up. And he goes, "Typical."
Later on the bridge, Spock, while making repairs, accidentally activates a panel, and the Romulan ship detects the Enterprise and moves to attack. Kirk anticipates this and manages to fire on the Romulan ship. Furious, the Romulan commander orders more debris into the disposal tubes, including a nuclear warhead.
I like that part.
Spock's like, "I'm going to put my hand up here, but where's that button? Where is it? There it is." Ah.
I know that took him forever to like stand up and shut it off too.
Yeah.
He jumped up and he's like, "There we go."
Yeah. Oh, this one.
Yep. Cook's like, "Oh, that's fine. I was planning on Spock making a mistake anyway. Engage." Engage.
Yeah,
It's only
Styles
been
is ready
9 hours.
Styles is ready to be like, Romulan spy, but Kirk is like, no,
Yeah.
I waited for long for this mistake. Fire. Yeah.
There's this thing even too, like the Romulans are on like the other side, and they're like all like just sitting there because it's been like 10 hours. They're like, "Oh, we've got him now. We've got him on the ropes."
Yeah. It's the beauty of submarine combat, or they're just like,
right.
go quiet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Nothing on the radar, sir. Oh
The
boy.
funny thing is, now I guess the reality is this Spock could have opened some sort of comm frequency that broadcasted, but it makes me kind of laugh that it's like they don't really touch on it in Star Trek in general. Is like,
Yeah.
if talking and bridge sound effect, like bridge noises,
Can be
picked up by another ship, like, wouldn't you constantly, like, it would just be like, well, everybody can hear everything, and it would be, you'd never be able to feel comfortable talking about anything confidential, even in protected comms.
Yeah, cones.
Yeah,
cones of silence. No, so that when they were going like radio silent, and they turned off like all the power, I'm like, well, first of all, the ship is still running like, oxygen and
right,
life support,
right.
But then they're all like, everybody's whispering, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
I'm like, what? So this stuff can pick that up? It can pick up like talking on the bridge? Like that's weird.
So the plot of this episode is based on the 1957 film The Enemy Below,
Mm-hmm.
with the Enterprise taking the part of the American destroyer and the bird of prey with its cloaking device taking part of the submarine.
Gotcha.
The director of the episode had seen the film, but only noticed the similarity later when it was pointed out. He commented, "Obviously, it's the same story." So the Enemy Below. Let me pull it up.
It sounds
here.
familiar.
It is during World War II, an American destroyer discovers a German U-boat, and in the ensuing duel, the American captain must draw upon his experience to defeat the equally experienced German commander.
Yep. Wow. Yeah. Like identical. Well, good for that, the writer then, because like, like modern day writers, they'd be like, oh no, there's no similarities whatsoever. That's ridiculous. Like we just saw with the episode, right? It was very much like Ridley Scott.
Oh,
and
yeah.
He's like, oh, I've never even seen Alien. I don't even know what that is. He's like, oh yeah, there is some similarities. It's pretty much identical. Oh well.
So obviously that's what they're trying to film. They're just trying to be like, they have to be radio silent because 60s audiences don't understand how space works because man hasn't gone on the moon yet. So It's like, they're just like, yeah, well, it's just like submarines in space. Like, you got to be really quiet because they can hear everything.
Well, yeah, and submarines make sense, obviously, because like any movement like inside the metal hull picks up
water,
like the frequency and stuff.
Yeah, like water reverberates everything. It's a great conductor for sound. So it's like,
yeah, I like that. I think that's really cool.
Yeah. Spock picks up the metal cased object on his sensors and the Enterprise fires upon it. The massive explosion causes damage to the Enterprise, but despite now having the upper hand, the Romulan commander decides to head for home. So it's here when the thing blows up. This is where Uhura's like falling towards the door. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I see.
She basically walks like across the room.
Okay. Scott reports that while phasers are operational, only Tomlinson, the groom from the wedding, is manning the station. Styles quotes his experience with phasers, and Kirk sends him down to assist. In an attempt to lure the Romulan ship back, the Enterprise plays dead. Despite his reservations and the crippled status of his ship, the Romulan commander is reminded by Decius that it is the commander's duty to crush the enemy. The commander then reluctantly gives the order to attack.
Grant me the honor of destroying the Enterprise. The thing I thought was funny too was like after that, after they shoot that missile, Bones is like, oh yeah, there was 21 casualties. All like radiation sickness and poison.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh wow. And then like the episode ends. And he's like, well, how many did we lose today? And he's like, oh, just the one, just the husband. I was like, what?
I think he just meant in that recent attack, but yeah, I know what you mean. I did think the same thing. Shouldn't you say 23? But no.
Yeah.
But I think he was just talking about that most recent attack.
Unless he didn't mean casualties, he just meant like 23 were like not on duty anymore, like they were badly
you know what, he did say that 22 were affected by radiation and it could have been a lot worse, so maybe they didn't die and only they lost was the husband or the fiance.
I could have swore he said casualties, but I don't think he meant casualties. I think he meant like
just
whatever the other word is,
like patrons. Yeah. All right. Meanwhile, Spock checks on the phaser crew, and Styles coldly remarks that they will handle things without your help, Vulcan. After Spock leaves, however, a phaser coolant leak erupts. As the Romulan ship moves into attack, Kirk gives the order to fire phasers, but both Tomlinson and Styles have been overcome by the coolant fumes.
Yeah.
Realizing the danger, Spock runs back and manages to fire the phasers in time, severely damaging the Romulan ship.
It's just like immediately, oh God, we need a Vulcan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh no. Oh no.
Yep. The only gripe I had with the episode, but I get it's just a filming choice. It's a thing to be like so the audience understands.
Yeah.
Kirk is like, fire phasers, do it. Fire, 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 fire. And they won't do it, and they won't do it. And then Spock hears it. He runs back. And then when they come into the room, Styles is like just barely has his hand on the thing, and then he like passes out. And I was thinking, like, was he laying on the floor this entire time and then tried to get up? Like, I don't know if that's how like losing consciousness works. It's like if the fumes are making or killing you or rendering you unconscious, like it seems like he would have had just enough thing to be like beep beep beep, fire, and then pass out, and then Spock is coming in to like save their bot, like save them, like drag them out. Instead, it just looked like, if you think about it from the reality standpoint, he's just standing there like coughing, and Kirk's like fire, fire, and he's like, oh, it's so bad, it's so bad. Then he's like,
well, yeah. Even when they show like the like the smoke coming in,
yeah,
he's like, oh no, look at the smoke, and they're both like, oh no,
yeah,
and then they like didn't do anything. They didn't push like fire.
Yeah, they don't do anything. They don't report that there's a leak.
I also kind of think, as far as like a ship standpoint, I think it's absolutely ridiculous to have the firing mechanism not on the bridge.
So you have found the other thing.
You know what I mean?
Literally the only time.
Because, this is the only time that they do this?
This is the only time that they go, that Kirk is like, he says to this person, do this, and then this person says to this person, do this. They don't ever do this again.
Oh, well, good. That's good. Yeah, because it literally makes no sense if Kirk is like, oh my God, okay, fire phases, and they're like, okay, fire phases, we have command to fire phases, and then it goes down, they're like, okay, firing phases.
Yeah. Because
even he says like fire. Okay, Captain wants the phasers fired.
Yeah,
and she's like, okay, increase power, and then she's waiting for the guys at the switchboards. And she's like, all right, now fire. It's like a 10-second, 30-second delay between like the captain's order. I was like, that is horrible as far as like tactics.
So you know what it is? It's because that's what they do on a submarine ship.
Well, yeah, but they're in the same room just down the hall, basically.
Right.
And they have to actually like manually load the torpedo.
Right, exactly. Right. So that's what this guy is hearkening to. He's literally like, they're getting on the radio, fire torpedo, and then they go and it's like an engine room, and then he's like, aye, Captain, then turns to the men who load it.
Loading torpedoes now, sir.
Yeah, right. And then they put the thing in and they fire. Like that's what he's trying to encapsulate in a Star Trek episode, which it doesn't work because they're supposed to be firing in an instant because it's space. It's not water and it's not little motorboat engines like going like it's like,
yeah,
these guys can move at warp speed. You got to be able to shoot fast.
Well, that's why they reverse too, because a submarine could literally just keep backing up until the missile just kind of like goes to the like drops off the ground. Yeah, immediately I was like, that really, I gotta tell you, that makes no sense.
Yeah, no,
practically.
No, they don't do that again that I'm aware of.
They don't never do that again.
The thing I did like is that when they are like, let's look at their bridge.
Yeah.
I was like, how? This is a really weird, like, dumb thing to do. Like, we can just look into people's bridges whenever. Like, why wouldn't you do this every episode?
Oh, I know.
But it's a thing where they do explain it. It's the DCS Romulan guy uses, like, code.
Yeah.
He uses, like, some sort of, like, computer coding to send a message to the Praetor on Romulus. and the Enterprise intercepts it and is able to use that code to like hack their ship and look at them. So that's what happens. Because it's not until that Theseus guy, and that's why he gets mad at him. He's like, you shouldn't have sent a subspace message, because now we're revealed, and Uhura and Spock take that coded message and somehow use it to like hack them and look at the ship.
No, that makes more sense. Because even in Strange New Worlds, they did that, but they had to
I think he hails him. I think he just hails him.
I think they got some refraction from some meteoroid or something when they were passing by it.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Some frequency that, like, as they drove by, bounced off of some space glass or something.
Yeah. So, visual contact between ships is somehow established as Kirk watches a severely wounded Romulan commander stagger to his feet. The Romulan commander turns and looks upon Kirk's face. Despite Kirk's offer to beam aboard any survivors, the Romulan commander informs him that it is not the Romulan way. He then says, with admiration, I regret that we meet in this way. You and I are of a kind. In a different reality, I could have called you friend. And as the last part of his duty, he sets the Romulan ship to self-destruct. Kirk watches regretfully as the ship is destroyed. So that's kind of the thing I was talking about, is like Kirk appeals to this side of his nature and Pike appealed to this side of his nature, but it just the outcomes led to different things. And it's also nice to the point we were kind of like annoyed about in A Quality of Mercy, where the Praetor like pushes the ship front, like sends the ship forward, and then they blow it up, and the commander just lets it happen because he's like, this is just the way we do things. And we were like, that's really stupid. Why would you let that happen? But here you go. Apparently Romulans are just like, no. The way we handle things is we sacrifice ourselves for the greater good. Or the Romulan way, essentially.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I liked this more. I liked that this was the captain's decision.
Right. Yes.
And not like being forced into doing it, you know?
Yeah. And there is a note. They try really hard, but I bet you the writers didn't care or didn't think about it. There's one little line where the commander, I think, is talking to the Centurion, and he says, they're talking about the Praetor, and they just say the word Praetor, and then there's one little line, and he says, him. And then in the Strange New Worlds episode, it's a woman. And I went, aha!
Oh.
I said, so apparently Pike writing to those children to not get blown up in that accident changes who is Praetor in the future as well.
Yep. Absolutely.
So Kirk goes to sickbay and discovers that not only did Spock fire the phasers, but he also rescued Styles. Styles is humbled and amazed that Spock saved his life after everything he had said to him. Unfortunately, Spock was unable to save Robert Tomlinson. Kirk is then forced to console his grief-stricken fiancée, Angela Martine, while she stands alone in the chapel. It never makes any sense. We both have to know that there was a reason, Kirk says softly to Martine. She tearfully assures the captain that she will be fine and leaves. Yep. That concludes our episode. I did think it was kind of strange. It kind of, the way that they phrase it, and I understand that this isn't what they actually were writing, but it just feels like this. It feels like Spock comes into the room, is holding his breath or whatever, fires the phasers, and then turns and drags Styles out of the room, and then comes back in, and then he drags Tomlinson out, and it's like,
oh yeah,
it's just like,
why wouldn't he take both of them out?
Yeah, like he has Vulcan strength. He could just drag both of them out. But it doesn't sound like that.
No, it doesn't, does it?
No, it doesn't. And I also thought it was funny here and how the writing says grief stricken, but then he goes to see her in the chapel and she's like, it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah. Very much. She was immediately like, oh, yeah, it's cool.
Whatever. I was just like, oh, apparently you weren't really that involved with this guy.
Yeah. Well, you know what it was? she said, "Hey, you didn't get away with it that easily. Like, you're still gonna marry me." And he's like, "Yeah, well, I'm your superior officer right now, so do what you're told." And she's like,
Hmm.
And then he died, and she's like, "You know what? I'm all right with this. I got a promotion." Yeah.
That was the review. So let's jump on over to everyone's favorite part of the episode.
Caleb. 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 Caleb.
So, who gets the Erica Ortegas Award for being most unlikable?
The guy in charge of navigation.
So, Styles,
Yeah.
basically Ortega's counterpart.
Yeah, he's a pop. Yeah. Yeah, it's gotta be. Yeah.
Yeah. I figured it was going to be. So, who gets the Elizabeth Cutler Award for being most forgettable?
The groom.
Tomlinson, yeah.
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 Couldn't even breathe in a little smoke.
Nope.
I mean,
Like,
what's
hey, he's
the
getting
deal?
married.
What's the deal?
All right. Who gets the Trip Tucker Award for being the MVP?
Kirk.
All right. Yeah, right. It was basically Kirk was the whole reason why it worked out.
Without Kirk, I mean, it would have been all for naught.
So it comes down to being Captain Kirk and Admiral Pike. Those are the two MVPs of this storyline.
Yep.
All right, what gets the Shran Award as being the best action sequence of the episode?
When they shoot the warhead
Oh, okay.
and Uhura goes across the bridge. That was pretty good.
Fair enough. All right, what gets the NX Award and for some sweet ship stuff?
When they showed the bird of prey, like the very beginning, they showed it kind of flying away.
Oh yeah,
and you could see the actual like bird painted on the bottom of the ship.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it is cool, right? Yeah, it is a great design. I don't really know why Romulans would have birds on their ships, but still, it's a cool thing.
Yeah, like, I don't know.
Well, the thing I think that they
were.
should do is in some of their imagery and some of their logos. There's like it's a big. I don't know what kind of bird it is, but it's a really large bird, and in its talons are Romulus and Remus. The two planets are like gripped in its talons, and that's some of its imagery. But it doesn't look like the thing underneath the ship. It's not like it's not like a brown phoenix. And white. It's like it's like a phoenix, kind of like green looking crazy thing. So
yeah,
that's okay. Beyond the point.
This was the first time too that I've seen like on the map showed specifically like those two planets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, this is honestly like your first kind of dip into like Romulan stuff. So which is cool.
Yeah.
Okay, what gets the Porthos Award for being the cheesiest thing of the episode?
The cheesiest thing, I think, the thing that I laughed at too was the very end there when the Romulan captain, he's like, yeah, like we could have been friends, but now I have to self-destruct the thing.
Oh, yeah.
And he like leans over and he's like, yeah. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
I like that.
Otherwise, you don't know that the ship's blowing up.
Nope. Yeah, I would have no idea.
All right. What, lastly, gets the Enterprise Award for being the best scene of the episode?
I kind of like that part where Kirk makes contact with the Romulans. And he's like, hey, so I'm ready to beam you guys aboard.
Oh. Yeah.
And it's like, that's what's kind of cool about Kirk, right? Is that like after all of that,
yeah,
he's like, okay, so I've outdone you.
Yeah.
But like nobody needs to like die from this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I appreciate that,
It is a cool beat. It's funny. I like though that your two thing merges. It goes from the best scene of the episode right into the cheesiest scene of the
Yeah.
episode.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
to-
hey, that's 60 Star Trek. It rides that fine line of, hey, this is really good to, oh, like,
hey, this is kind of stupid.
yeah, good. Yeah, I agree too. I forgot he says that, and when he says it, I was like, oh yeah, that's like a nice
Yeah, it's cool,
beat
right?
that Kirk. And the nice thing about it too is like they don't write it where Kirk is like smarmy about it. He legitimately is like, okay, like
Yeah.
lower your shield so we can beam your survivors. All right. Well, write in the comments below what you thought of the episode. Let us know if you enjoyed the parallel between Strange New Worlds and the original series. That's obviously been the biggest thing of this episode. It's hopefully a more exciting episode to harken back to, since a lot of people like Strange New Worlds and maybe haven't seen the original series. So this is a great one to get into if you've never seen any. If you haven't seen any of the original series, this is a great one to watch, because if you like Strange New Worlds, you're gonna like this episode. Next week's episode is going to be the 7th episode of the original series, but for us, it will be episode 9. That episode is entitled "What Are Little Girls Made Of?"
Cool. I saw that one on there.
Yeah,
I thought that was a funny title.
it is a really funny title, especially for what the episode is about.
Oh, good.
So you haven't gotten there in season 2, but when you get there, this is why this episode is on the track. So
Another one of those, huh?
another one of those. So as you see, we watched Balance of Terror because of Quality of Mercy. Now we're watching this episode because of some dialogue and some things that happened in season 2 of Strange New World.
Yeah, I like that.
That will be next week. As always, if you liked what you saw, like the video. If you disliked what you saw, dislike the video. Share it with your Star Trek friends and family. Subscribe so you don't miss it, and ring that bell for notifications so that when it comes out, you can watch it as soon as it's available, which is usually Sundays at 5. And for Caleb and I, we still have a couple things in the works. We're going to soon be covering Andor and things of that nature, and some other cool things. Is there anything this week or next week that you are going to have on your Thursday upload? Or
man. I did this weird thing where I put stuff out the past 2 Thursdays in a row. Just something I haven't done in a little bit, I've been trying to do like bi-weekly. So I don't know. This might be an off week.
Okay.
Or like a prop build. I am editing something currently.
Okay.
But I don't know if it'll make it. Our Dragon Ball episode 4 came out over the past week. That came out on the 19th.
Yeah, that came out like
Yesterday?
5 days ago.
Yeah, 5 days ago. Yeah. Yeah, so check that out. That was a fun one. We finished the tournament saga.
We did.
And yeah, that was pretty fun. We enjoyed it.
Yeah. So make sure you go and watch that, because just like how much Caleb likes the trophies at the end of this, I had to make some decisions on the end of that. So
yeah, I added a few trophies to that.
So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. So computer, end program. See you guys.
Check for any messages. Oh, yes, there is a message here. Let's see. From the captain to all crew, please do the outro video. Oh, okay, yes. Take time on my busy Dr. Schedule here to record a couple things. Oh, hello. Dr. Stephen House, Chief Medical Officer aboard the USS Drake. Just wanted to record a few reminders for you guys. So here we go. The Retrek Review is a Daystrom Holodeck podcast. It's produced in association with the Plastic Underground Props, hosted by Caleb Stoddard and Will Wilbur, edited by Will Wilbur. Our outro song is by Kaylee Joy Rookledge. Our theme song is by Samo Studios. And our outro song is by Tommy T. The title card art was created by Caleb Stoddard. Trophy art was created by Adri Wilbur from Love by the Letters. The synopsis and written plot provided by memoryalpha.fandom.com. Star Trek is created by Gene Roddenberry, and all official clips and pictures are owned by Paramount Pictures. You can follow us at the Plastic Underground Props and the Daystrom Holodeck on Instagram and YouTube. So that is it. That is all I had to say. And what? Lazesh, don't touch that. You put this picture in for the Romulans.
My delicious watermelon helmet.
What they
I
look
do it
like.
for the Praetor.
No seeds, please.